Good morning, South Africa, and welcome to State of the Nation, where we take an honest and unfiltered look at the actual state of this country. If you enjoy the conversation, please support this channel by liking and subscribing, and join in the conversation by leaving a comment. We want to build a community for all South Africans that transcends race and gender, and adds positively to the national dialogue. Last night, President Cyril Ramaphosa delivered the State of the Nation address. Predictably, the evening began with a performance by the parliamentary clowns, as the EFF gave us a repeat performance of their only act, Disruption. The evening did not get any better from there. The president announced a state of disaster, once again giving the ANC sweeping powers over the nation.
Well, I think the big concern for us is the national state of disaster. We believe that it is ill-considered, and we saw the looting and maladministration that went on in the last state of disaster, as long as the stupid regulations that were being passed left, right and centre that actually end up harming the economy and killing jobs even more. We don't believe it's necessary to have a national state of disaster to deal with an electricity problem.
They seem unable to accept that electricity is an ANC-made disaster, and they cannot fix it. There are many unanswered questions about the state of disaster, like how it will be used, and how long it will last. Will the country be under authoritarian rule until the electricity crisis is resolved? That could take a decade.
What we've heard today, we are not convinced that even in 10 years we're going to solve these problems.
We will now have to wait for our de facto dictator, Dlamini Zuma, to proclaim the new rules and regulations. But the president was not finished mocking the country. He also announced that we will be getting yet another minister. We will now have a Minister of Electricity in the presidency.
A Minister of Electricity. What does that mean? Does that mean because there are problems with PRASA, we may have the Minister of Trains? Does that mean very soon we will have the Minister of Corruption? Truth is, the disaster is this government. All of them, and everything is a disaster here.
Do we need another cabinet minister over and above we have? The ones we have? I don't think so.
You've now also appointed a third minister now to get in the way of getting through this energy crisis. So now we're going to have a third minister with electricity, Mr. Godon and Mr. Mantashe. Three people getting in the way. We should get the politicians out of the way.
We really do not need a minister of electricity. We might end up with a minister of potholes, minister of pit toilets.
When the president moved away from electricity, he repeated many old promises and failed plans.
That we're going to hear new and old promises from the president, and it appears that the last 6 State of the Nation addresses were cut and paste, and this has been his new address.
The situation in this country is that we always listen to these lofty ideals and plans, but we don't normally see implementation.
I must say that the speech itself was extremely disappointing, because that which was given was the repetition of what has been given to us for over 15 years. The president will come, make a presentation, and not achieve anything at all.
A long-winded narrative around ESCOM, load shedding, and the creation of new promises with no precise action plan, no policies.
Well, I think that the president has very clearly made promises and not kept them, as he's done in the past. For the last 6 to 7 years of the State of the Nation address, we've seen promises that are unfulfilled. The president has made a promise to reduce unemployment. Unemployment sits at 33%, 70% for youth unemployment. He's made a promise to reduce crime. We have some of the highest levels of crime, where our murder rate is equivalent to, if not surpassing, that of the war in Ukraine and those of Ukrainians.
Amongst those, the plan for a state-owned bank is almost unbelievable. The same people who destroyed an airline, Eskom, Transnet, Denel, the post office, and many other entities, now want to use taxpayer money to fund a bank. We may as well give them the money in a brown paper bag and save on the paperwork. The other concern was the indication that social grants would be increased. South Africa is a welfare state with more than 20 million people dependent on social grants.
We hope that it can better articulate the fact that this social distress of grant for the poor must be the basis upon which we can build a universal income grant for all South Africans.
Ramaphosa is under political pressure to institute a basic income grant which would be unaffordable and bankrupt the country.
We're already sitting with a 4.5 trillion rand debt in this country. And when I talk about 4.5 trillion, I'm not talking about local government and all other departments that are borrowing. So we have a crisis as far as the debt is concerned in the country.
Ramaphosa ended his speech by quoting Nelson Mandela and calling for everyone to work together. While it was elegantly said, his words were hollow and meaningless. How can we work together when the government is actively working against the nation? If you want to know more about what is happening in the world, check out our sponsor's book, The Ministry of Truth, by Ethan Quinn. This book explains how identity politics is used to manipulate society.
Despite the propaganda, this is not a struggle between people of diverse cultures, races, or genders. In reality, the culture war is taking place to decide the fundamental question of our time: what sort of society do we want?
Please support this channel by liking and subscribing.